kids, Mrs. Lana here. So nice to see you coming from my house, just where everybody else is too. And I'm bringing you a lesson from Luke 23 this morning. So here it is. Pilate wanted to set Jesus free, but the people yelled, "Crucify him." Pilate even tried to change their minds, but the people just yelled louder, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" Finally, Pilate gave in and handed Jesus over to the soldiers to be crucified. Later that day, they brought Jesus to a hill called the Skull. And there they nailed him to a cross. Beside him were two criminals, one on the left and one on the right. As Jesus lay dying, the crowd watched. As Jesus lay dying, the religious leaders mocked and made fun of him. "If you saved others, then why don't you save yourself?" they said. As Jesus lay dying, the soldiers gambled for his clothes. And they bullied and they made fun of him. And they said, "If you're really the king of the Jews, save yourself." But as Jesus lay dying, he said, "Father, please forgive them. They don't know what they're doing." One of the criminals said, "If you're really the Messiah, then prove it. Save yourself and save us too." But the other criminal said, "Don't you fear God? Don't you know that he's done nothing wrong? But we are criminals. We deserve to die." And then he looked at Jesus and said, "Please remember me when you get into your kingdom." And you know what Jesus said to that man? He said, "This very night you will be in paradise with me." Hey, what do you kids think we learn about people from this story? And I'm talking more about the two criminals that were beside Jesus on the cross. What were the differences? One decided to follow Jesus, and one decided to not follow Jesus. He turned away from him. He was the one that said, "Prove it." But the other one said, "Don't you fear God?" And he said, "Please remember me." And Jesus promised to take him into paradise that very night. That's pretty cool. But that reminded me about my testimony and about how I became a believer. I was only 7 years old, so not much older than a lot of you, or maybe just a little older than some of you. But I was only 7 years old when I became a believer, and it was my dad that told me about Jesus. My dad had become a believer and started going to church and reading the Bible, and he started telling me about Jesus, and he gave me a Bible, and he started taking me to church. And then one day we were driving in the car. I used to go along with my dad as he did his work, and we were driving in the car, and he said, "Lana, do you want to become a believer?" And I said, "You know, Dad, I really do." And so he pulled over the car and he prayed with me right there on the edge of the road. And there I became a believer, and I asked Jesus to be my forever friend, and I became a follower of him. I started reading my Bible and learning about him, and I started going to church and learning more about him. And that's what I'm hoping for you guys too. That's what I'm thinking about this Easter. I bet you guys have some great testimonies, just like mine. You can sometimes think when you're a kid that your testimonies, they're not that big of a deal because you were just a kid when you became saved. But they are a big deal. And you know what? I'm challenging you this Easter to tell somebody that doesn't know anything about Jesus, about your testimony and how you came to know Jesus. I think that would be really cool if you did that. And maybe, just like Jesus, let that criminal that was beside him on the cross, he ended up going to heaven. Maybe you'll be able to tell somebody about Jesus and they'll make that decision to follow him. And if you're someone, a kid that hasn't asked Jesus yet to be your forever friend, I hope that you will stop right now and ask Jesus to forgive you of your sins and that you could go to heaven one day to live with him as well. So kids, that's all I have for you today. I wanted to tell you I miss you so much. I love you. I can't wait till we can meet all together in kids' church and do kids' worship all together and meet in our classrooms. That is going to be such a wonderful day. But until then, I hope you guys have a happy Easter and I love you guys. Bye.